students! I am so excited that you've decided to join me on one more learning adventure before the end of the school year. So today's format is going to be a little different. Instead of telling you a super silly joke at the end of the video, I'm going to be showing you some personal artwork that I've done over the past year or so. And so you can see what my artwork looks like. Today our video is going to be on a fabulous pop artist named James Rizzi. I just love pop artists, and I think you're gonna love him too. They bring so much joy through color and personality and just wonderful joyfulness. So I hope you enjoy his quick little presentation I have, and then we're gonna get into the project, and then I'm gonna wrap up the video. So I hope you enjoy today's lesson.
All right, here's a picture of the man of the hour. Even during his lifetime, James Rizzi was one of the most popular artists of all time, a true pop artist. He first became famous for inventing the 3D paper sculpture and the 3D magnetic images that have been inseparably linked with his name since the 1970s. Rizzi also made his mark as a creator of drawings and of unique acrylics. He put his artistic stamp on a multitude of different products, from postage stamps to cars. His sense of humor and optimism inherent in all of his works are loved by millions of fans all over the world. Ever since his unexpected death in December of 2011, demand for his works of the New York artist went through the roof. His fans mourned the death of a great artist and at the same time a wonderful human being who never lost touch with the real world. James Rizzi's death has left a void in the global art market that will not be easy to fill. Our objectives for this lesson are to appreciate the art of James Rizzi, determine if James Rizzi's art is pop art, and create a 3D cityscape. Interesting little story about how James Rizzi kind of discovered his style is when he was in college and he had an assignment from his 2D art teacher that would be doing flat works like paintings or drawings, and also an assignment from his 3D art teacher, of course making things three-dimensional like sculptures or clay works. And he said, you know what? Why do I have to make two different projects for these assignments? I'm just going to do one and submit it to both of them. And there was the birth of a great idea that we love today. When I think of the James Rizzi style, I think of this. Lots of buildings that are colorful. I see lots of wonderful faces. And a lot of the times you're going to see the sun and the moon in the same picture, because for him, and you can read this quote, "My city doesn't sleep, but it will weep, smile, laugh, and cry, and say goodbye to a changing sky." So his city, New York City, never slept. Things were always going on day and night. Oh my gosh, look how imaginative this picture is. It's not just buildings and faces on the buildings or even the moon and the sun, but look at all the other details. There's birds, there's UFOs. And then look at the details on the actual windows in this picture. So many wonderful things to celebrate. Let's review what the pop art style is. It's full of color, it's playful, everyday objects or people, and faces on objects. And I think when we look at his artwork, that we can agree we can see all of those elements incorporated into his style as well. Well, you know James Rizzi has a soft spot for the 3D. So look at this awesome building that's in Germany that's in his style. Oh my gosh, how fun it would be to visit this, or if it's a hotel, maybe stay in it. Here's another view of the block where you can see it from a slightly different angle. And then this is what it looks like on the inside. Still fun and has that pop art spirit in it. So today's assignment, create a background, Rizzi style, fold some paper, draw some buildings with silly faces, color lines, shapes with crayons or oil pastels, and then paint and assemble with glue.
All right, students, so for this lesson, we're gonna need some glue and 2 pieces of cardstock. Probably this won't work so great with regular copy paper, But maybe if you had white construction paper, it might be okay. And if you don't have a thicker paper like cardstock, then you could actually use like a cereal box, and you would just use the two large flat sides of it as your thicker paper. Of course, you'll be decorating the side that is on the inside of the box rather than the already printed one on the outside. You'll need some crayons
Or oil pastels.
You'll need some paint, some water in a cup, a brush, some paper towels. You'll also need scissors, pencil, and a permanent marker for this assignment. Permanent marker isn't an absolute necessity, but it does make the lines a little bit bolder and easier to see. And of course, you're going to be using your imagination. All right, let's get on to the first part of our project. All right, we're going to put one of our pieces of paper off to the side along with our other supplies. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a background for our city. And if you remember back in the presentation, James Rizzi loved to make pictures with suns and moons and maybe stars in the background. So I'm actually going to do that first. If you're not sure about your shapes and lines, you could first use a pencil for this, no problem. So, I might think about maybe I'm going to do a quarter moon, and maybe the sun would be over here. Every once in a while, too, if you look up in the sky, you can actually see the moon and sun up there at the same time during the daytime, which is really kind of cool, I think. I am going to be decorating these near the top of the paper because the bottom of the paper is going to be covered up with the city. And notice, too, how I turned my paper tall and vertical to do this, rather than turning it short and wide, which you could do, but I think you'll get a better result if you turn it this way as well. And then maybe I'll just put a few stars up here in the sky. Definitely don't want to go below halfway on your paper for this. I'm happy with my 1/3 here. And then I'm going to go ahead and I am simply going to outline it because I think that will make a really nice bold picture when I have these nice outlines. Of course, if you had other permanent markers that were different colors, I could outline that with them, but I probably would not use Crayola markers for this, the water-based ones, because we're going to be painting, and unless you are just a super careful painter where you can carefully paint around things, it could probably get a little hairy for you. So definitely consider those permanents for this. Or maybe just do the crayon part and skip the marker outline altogether, which is actually going to be our next part. So I am going to do white for my moon. And if you find that as you color over things, that you say, oh wow, it covered up some of the eyes there, just take your pencil and scrape some of that wax off of that, and that should be just fine for you. And then I'm going to go in here, oops, and I'm going to color my sun, and then I am going to color my stars. So I'm just coloring the inside of them. All right, so now I'm ready for my next step. I happen to have an old bottle here that I actually filled up with oil and water that I've put a little bit of food coloring into. And you can see how the oil and the water definitely don't mix. Now, that's because the oil is a larger, lighter, fattier molecule, and the water is going to be more dense. So this kind of works on that premise where the wax is going to create a protective barrier on the paper. But if you had oil pastels, that would work as well too. And when we go to paint, what's nice is you don't have to be as careful while you're painting. So if you accidentally get some on the moon or the sun, for example, a paper towel should be able to just blot those right off, and I'll show you as we paint today. So now I'm going to take my watercolor set, and I'm just going to go into my color blue for this, and I'm going to paint in the whole paper. All right, so I'm going to put this painting off to the side, give it a chance to dry completely. Turn your paper short and wide. And now we're going to be working on our buildings. So the first thing I'm going to do is a little bit of estimation. I want to draw a very light line about 1/3 of the way down after I've turned my paper into a horizontal or landscape format like this. So while the first artwork was more vertical portrait format, we're turning it now sideways this way. So I'm going to go ahead and think about thirds of my paper here. So I want about 1/3 at the top and 2/3 at the bottom. And this doesn't have to be exactly measured right, just somewhere in here. And you can use a ruler if you want to, but I'm just going to do a very light line. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about, because part of this project is going to be a side view of the buildings. So I need to leave about 1 inch's worth of the building for the side of the building. And then I need a little bit more that I'm going to use to glue or tape down to the background paper. So something like about maybe 2 inches here is going to be obligated in that area. So I might just go ahead and do a very light line that comes down here. Maybe the space of 3 fingers would be good for this. And I'm going to do about 3 fingers maybe over here. Great, so now I know that this is all going to be obligated on the sides and gluing down or taping down. This is the part I'm concerned about with the buildings. So I am going to, and this will become part of the building here. So I'm going to leave that normal. And I'm going to draw a straight line that comes down like this. And then, do I want my buildings to be all the same width? Maybe, maybe not. I might make a lower building here. And again, maybe I would have a line that would come here. But maybe I don't want it to be the same height as this one. So I'm going to just bring this line all the way out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to erase that first line I drew like this. And guess what? This is going to be the other building that's going to come in front of this one once we flip it around. So the next step of this project is going to be to cut along this line here for the tops of the buildings. And you do want to cut carefully for this, since we are going to use all of the paper for this part of the project. Great. So now I have those, and now I have this smaller section. And guess what? I'm going to bring those lines down too. But before you decide to do that, you might want to flip over the paper and do it a different way like this. So either way is going to be absolutely fine. But again, I need to make sure I am not obligating this part here, because only part of it is going to be showing. So how much do we need to probably glue down or tape down? Probably only about a pencil's width or 2. So I am going to put a dashed line here because I know that's where I'm going to fold. And we're also going to be folding here, but this is going to show, this is going to be the side of the building. So again, I'm just going to put maybe a little dashed line here. And then I know I'm going to be folding here. And I'm going to be folding also over here. So that means this is the side of the building. So I want to make sure I paint that area and decorate it also. So for our next step If you are very confident in your abilities, you could go straight to a permanent marker, or if you don't have one, you can just use your pencil. I am going to go ahead and go straight to a permanent marker, and I want to go ahead and show you that I have this great worksheet here. So I actually borrowed this worksheet from Cassie Stevens' website, who's an amazing art teacher. And I want to make sure that I put some faces up at the top, but along this bottom area on both sections, I am going to be just doing windows and doors. And if you look at the James Rizzi artworks, they have, he has a lot of different shapes. He has squares, he has rectangles, he has triangles, he has, I think there's a heart. Look at that, there's a heart. And so, you know, you can add windows. There's half circles here and arched windows. All of those are great. And then it almost looks like the faces are windows too. So we're going to just do some silly faces up at the top for that. But I know down near the bottom part, I am going to be doing just squares and those other shapes for the windows. So I am going to go ahead and do that now. Now, I know that James Rizzi, he didn't put a lot of doors in his pictures, but I'm going to put doors in mine. All right, so next I'm gonna do a little bit of outlining, and then I'm gonna put some faces on these. So I am gonna go ahead and even outline this top edge that's here. I think it gives it a more finished kind of a look. And I'm also going to outline here on the outside edge of my buildings, just like so. And again, if you don't feel super confident just going straight into the Sharpie, by all means, you could first do this in pencil. Now, I purposely did this one so I didn't have a lot of room, and sometimes that happens, but I'm still gonna go in there and try to fit a face in there in some way. And again, you can pause the video and look at this sheet that I have up here for us. And it may give you some ideas, or you could come up with your own if you'd like. I'm just going to add some fun faces now. Okay, so now I have my fun faces. So our next step is going to be to add some crayon, again, to protect them so that when we go to paint, we will have no worries of accidentally painting over something, just like when we did our stars and moon and sun on our other one. So I am going to be coloring in the windows. If the windows are yellow, it might look like the lights are on inside the building. Or if you have colors in your windows, you might be seeing the draperies inside the window. So that's kind of the thinking on that. But again, these are fun, very colorful artworks. You can make them whatever colors you'd like. I am going to be coloring in any of the little spaces on the eyes and mouth I want to protect as well. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to include some windows over here too. And then again, I'm going to color those as well. All right, it's ready for our painting part. So I am just going to rinse my brush, make sure it's super clean, and then I'm going to go into colors that I want to use. I might choose colors that I haven't used in the building yet. So I haven't done green in this one, so I'm going to go ahead and maybe do green. And because I've already done that layer of crayon, it protects it from being covered up. But if it did have some on there and you wanted to take that off, all you would need to do is just take a paper towel and just wipe it, and that would work for us, no problem, taking care of that. Now, because this is wet, I might wait a minute to do the middle one, just because I don't want those two colors to mix. We don't have a waxy outline here to protect it so that it doesn't mix. So I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna go into a different color, and I'm now gonna do the next one. And this one did definitely covered up more, so no worries. Again, just take a paper towel that you have and then just blot it or wipe it even, and most of that paint will come off since you've already protected it. And we want to make sure we do these sides of the buildings too, so I forgot to do that on the other one. You probably noticed that. So now I'm just going to go in here and just hit that. I could do the white area too. It won't matter because it won't show up in the picture. That's just a personal preference for you. And now I'm going to go up and I'm going to do the same thing for the top. So now I'm going to let these dry a little bit, and then we'll be ready to assemble our parts. All right, we have all of our pieces now, and they're all dry. And if yours is not laying super flat, you could put it in a big book or put something heavy on top of it until it's completely dry. But do it only when it's just damp, or if it's dry and still really wavy, you could do it. You don't want to mess up your paint if it's wet on the paper still. All right, so the first one I'm going to do is the bigger of the buildings here. And I'm going to fold it right here on the line. And then I'm going to fold it again on that white edge, because that is now the side of my building here. I'm going to do the same thing over here, fold it on the line. Make those creases nice and sharp. Do the same thing on the dash line. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue it down to my paper. Where to put it, that's a great question. Because look, if I put my building on the bottom edge, you can still see my people pretty good. But what if I move this up just a little bit, and then I move this one here? That would work also. The only thing you've got to watch out for is that this is going to be glued onto this one, so you need to make sure you leave enough room to be able to do that. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and fold this, just like so. And then I'm actually going to be putting this on here. So it's going to go something like this onto it, and then this one is going to be onto the paper below. So we've got to make sure that we are able to have a surface to glue down to, but you could shift it down a little bit. Even though it's not exactly perfect with that, I still have enough of a surface where I could glue that down. And it's not super noticeable on the side, but if you're like wanting to make sure that they're completely side by side, you can just line those edges up with the bottom of the paper and do it. Or if it doesn't bother you to have a little bit of a gap there, you could do that too. It's really a personal preference. I am going to go ahead and glue this down. And we're going to put one here. And then we're going to put a glue line here. I'm going to put it down at the bottom of the paper because maybe it does bother me a little bit if that bottom edge is showing on that one. So we're going to go ahead and put this one down too. Trying to make sure that that pops up really good, so you may have to hold it for a few minutes to make sure it's really popping up well and it's in a spot you want it to be. There. And you can see I have that nice gap there now in between the background paper and it. So we want to do the same thing with this. We just probably want to glue this onto the one that's below it. So again, we're going to put some glue on that one there. And then I just want to make sure that makes a good connection there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side here. Put some glue on it. Put it underneath it. All right. So this is my finished project, and you can see here how the side of it looks on both sides. And there's my city, and you can see all their faces, so that turned out great. And they are now totally stuck together, and we have this 3D construct of a James Rizzi artwork, which I think looks pretty amazing. What's nice too is that these will stand up on their own, which is really nice. Oh, didn't you love that project? Oh my gosh, he is so much fun. So I wanted to go ahead and just show you a couple of pictures. So us art teachers in our county have a big show that we put on every year, and we actually couldn't put it on last year because of COVID. So our theme was reflections, and so I had finished my first painting, and I said, wow, I really love these, I'm going to do another. And then I did another, and then I did another. And over the summer break, I'm gonna be doing a 5th one because it needs one more for my dining room. All right, so here's some of my pictures. All right, I hope you enjoyed those. So, you know, it's going to be a while before we meet up again, so I just want to make sure that, you know what, you are wonderful, you are magical. Oh my gosh, you need to just love yourself because you are totally amazing. And you know what, you need to show that love to the people in your life. Give them a big hug every day. You know, say something nice to someone. It doesn't cost anything, and you just bring joy to whoever you see. You know what? You are in charge of putting that smile on someone else's face, and hopefully that in turn will put one on yours too. So this summer break, have fun, be safe, love one another, and until the next school year, keep on making great art.